So we saw the Euro USD break down at the end of last week, but how is it likely to move this week with the upcoming US GDP and PCE numbers, plus the latest on the Euro Index, the EXY, and also the US Dollar Index, the DXY. Now, before we get into today's video, guys, I do want to mention that if you want access to my trades in real time, plus my help with your trading, plus daily videos for members only, then click on the link at the top of this video, and you're going to be taken to this page here where you can sign up with my preferred broker. And if you deposit $100 or more and trade at least one lot, you are going to get a 30% deposit bonus, plus you're going to get lifetime access to our VIP group. Okay, so that's going to be my help with your trading, daily videos, plus you'll see my trades in real time. Now, this is a limited time offer, so be sure to check out the link in the description of this video. If you are on the website, click on the link that says broker at the top of this page, and you will be taken here to sign up. Okay, so looking at the Euro USD, guys, let's go ahead and get right into this. And if you saw last week's forecast, you know about 1.0865. So this was the key level that I've mentioned here recently. And you can see where we do have the highs back here. We've got some lows here recently. And if you'll notice, what yesterday tested was 1.0864. Okay, so right in that area before selling off to about 50 pips here between the high here and the low today. Now, as for the current market conditions, obviously this week, we do have an upcoming holiday. We also have the last trading day of the month and quarter coming up. So keep all those things in mind. We are seeing some pretty illiquid conditions across the market, and that's mostly due to the lack of event risk so far this week. So looking at the Forex Factory calendar, here's where things really get interesting for the dollar and so for the Euro USD. If you notice here tomorrow on Thursday, we do have US GDP and also unemployment claims. Okay, those are going to be two big events to watch. And then on Friday, we have core PCE. That's going to be the big one. We also have Powell speaking, although those events are typically hit or miss. You know, sometimes they move the market a little bit. Other times they're complete non-events. But I do think that with Thursday, these events right here are going to be the ones to watch. And then on Friday, we do have that core PCE. Okay, so it's been pretty quiet this week so far, but I do think we are likely to see some volatility here over the next 48 hours. Now, the one thing that I want to mention here before we get into how I'm trading the Euro USD this week, okay, later this week, is the EXY, the Euro Index. So this is what we talked about over the weekend. And I had a few comments that I want to clarify because I've seen people say that, you know, this is the weekly time frame. Who cares about this? One even said, you know, you can't trade this unless you have $1 million account. And that's not true at all, guys. You can trade this, you know, with a much smaller account, but this isn't about trading the EXY. It's not even about trading the weekly time frame. I don't care if you trade anything from the daily to the 4-hour, even the 1-hour chart. This is going to matter if it holds up. And what I mean by that, okay, is that if we see this level hold up, because notice how last week closed below this level. So we talked about this in the weekly forecast. And what you'll notice here, okay, if we move in, is that, again, we had last week closing below. And so far, this week is also kind of holding steady below that area. Now, was this a full retest here? We'll have to wait and see. But the bottom line, though, is that this was a marginal close below this key level. Now, the reason that this matters, regardless of the time frame that you're trading, okay? And again, this is not about trading the weekly chart. If you are trading even the 1-hour time frame, this could matter because if you know that the euro, okay, because this is the Euro Index, keep in mind, if you know that the euro is likely to do this, right, over the coming weeks and months, and again, this hinges on this area holding up as resistance. If it does, and we see the euro trend lower towards some of these lows, if you know that this is the likely scenario, then when you look at the Euro USD, do you really want to be trading from support, okay, even on something like the 1-hour time frame? And while you could, okay, obviously you could trade counter trend, but if you know that this is likely to unravel based on that EXY breakdown, right? And this is what we're likely to get here over the coming, you know, weeks and months. Do you want to be trading from support? Do you want to be looking for buys down here, or do you want to be shorting from resistance on breakdowns, right? And if you know that the trend is going to be lower based on that weekly chart, the EXY chart, then that is going to influence the way that you trade even the intraday charts, even the 1-hour time frame on the euro. So weekly time frames, guys, regardless of what time frame you trade, the weekly time frame is going to be significant. Okay, so with that in mind, we do have the EXY breaking down last week, holding below it so far this week, and the euro is obviously sideways. Okay, now what I'm looking at going into US GDP and PCE is you can see that obviously we did get a retest up here at this level, okay, 1.0865, and we got a nice sell-off from there. However, the one issue that I have with this is that, and this is especially true if you're a smaller time frame trader, is that we have this wick up here from Tuesday. And if you'll notice, once this session opened, we never even got a fill of that wick. The euro basically extended up to the open from Tuesday and sold off from there. So we have not seen a fill up here of this upper wick. So when we're going into US GDP and PCE, you've got to keep this in mind, because the odds of the market just moving lower like this, okay, without coming up here and taking out this area, is pretty slim, right? And you can even see that with something like this candle right back here. So notice the candle from right back here on March 8th. Okay, so we had this upper wick right back here, and it took several days for the market to fill this in, but it eventually did right here with this wick. Okay, so something very similar here with the current wick from Tuesday, where we haven't seen a fill yet. It could take a few days, but I do think that before we get an extended move lower, we are more likely to see the euro come up here and fill this area in before we get the move lower down toward 1.08 support. Okay, so just something to keep in mind as we head over the next few days. Again, this is especially true if you are trading the smaller time frames, to look for a move up here into about 1.085 over the coming days before we get a potential run at these lows around 1.08. Now, we have a similar situation here on the DXY2, the US dollar index. And by the way, guys, if you are enjoying the content, be sure to subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon for notifications. And don't forget to smash the like button. So looking at the DXY, we know about this breakout here that occurred last week. So we talked about this over the weekend, and you can see where we do have a retest so far this week right there at support. Okay, so resistance back here on that FOMC candle and support so far this week. So this region down here at 104 is still going to be key support for the dollar. However, same thing. Okay, same rules apply here for the DXY as what we just talked about on the euro. So looking at these highs and lows back here, this is what I would look for on the DXY. Okay, so you can see that this high from right back here, we've got this high, we've got this one here, we've got this low and this low and this high. So this gives you an area between 104.05 and 104.15. That is the area down here, okay, that lower wick from Tuesday that I would keep an eye on. And again, this lines up with what we see on the EUR USD because the two tend to move inversely to one another. Okay, so this wick right down here from Tuesday, we could see filled with the upcoming GDP and PCE numbers, because so far today we have not seen a fill at all of this wick down here. Okay, so be really careful with dollar longs right now, especially with the market still holding below that 104.45 level, because as I mentioned over the weekend, that is going to be the level that the dollar has to get above, okay, in order to turn higher toward 105 and 106. So as of right now, the market is still holding below that. So if you are longing the dollar right now, technically you're longing it right into resistance. So you do have to be a little bit careful. And this is why I've said recently, that if you are going to trade this week, especially with the illiquid conditions and also the holiday coming up, you want to use wider stops or just be really patient and just wait for the market to come into areas like this down here before you start looking for trading opportunities. All right, so we could see a slight pullback here from the dollar heading into those events this week. The same thing, or the inverse, I should say, with the euro, moving up here into this area. So potentially something like this here over the coming days with GDP and PCE before we get that turn lower. Okay, so coming up here to fill in that Tuesday upper wick right around, let's say 1.085 before we get the move lower down toward 1.08. Now, as long as the euro is below this area up here on a daily closing basis, then I'm going to remain bearish on the euro. If we were to see it reclaim up here, okay, and also the EXY take out this level up here on the weekly, all right, because again, we do have a confirmed breakdown based on this long-term trend line that we've talked about. Okay, so last week closed below. This market would have to close back up here in order to negate the breakdown that we saw and turn this into a fake out. All right, so that's what I'm looking for this week, guys. Basically, we do have the market playing out as we thought it might this week. Pretty slow conditions so far, but we do have that upper wick on the EUR USD to pay attention to as we head into GDP and PCE. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon for notifications. Don't forget to sign up with Blueberry Markets, deposit $100 or more to get your 30% deposit bonus plus lifetime access to our VIP group. Trade well out there, be careful of the upcoming volatility, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.